Hello, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we will be continuing with the My Thoughts series, and here to break down the Arizona Cardinals is Aditya Fuldeore. I like the way that just rolls off the tongue. Aditya, thank you for joining me. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to discuss the Cardinals today.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone's excited to discuss the Cardinals, but we'll see how it goes. You want to take a second here, tell everyone where they can find your work at.
Yeah, so my work can be found on playerprofiler.com and also on my Twitter at ADI_FUL. You'll find a lot of my articles on there as well as general thoughts about fantasy football and the football season as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's get right into it then. Shift around the graphic here. We have a quarterback room that would normally be nothing to see, but the starter Kyler Murray projects to miss at least a month, I would think. So it makes it more interesting. Colt McCoy would be scheduled to get the start, but they've got Clayton Tune, the newly drafted rookie. He is very raw. But when I did I'm a spreadsheet guy. When I did my spreadsheets of the measurables and the athleticism, he was one of the higher ranked guys that I seen. So I personally, I think they're going to suck this year, the Cardinals. So I personally wouldn't be all that upset if they gave Clayton Tune a couple of starts just to see if he was anything. I know the draft capital's not there, but what are your thoughts on these three?
Yeah, I definitely think Clayton Tune, 5th-round pick, he's got a chance to jump Colt McCoy. There's a reason they picked him. Maybe they're not that confident in Kyler Murray being back within the first 4 weeks of the season. So they have Clayton Tune there. I think he's got a chance to make a start or two. I definitely liked him better than some of the quarterbacks that went before him. Yeah. But in general, this QB room, it's Kyler Murray's unless he's injured. So nothing too special there other than maybe monitor Clayton Tune for a week or two at the beginning of the season there.
Yeah, I've got him stashed in a few taxi squads. Like I said, I really like the athleticism and some of what he did. Draft capital's not really there. The profile's not there. It's a dart throw, but there's worse dart throws out there. Moving on to a very underwhelming running back room. The prize of the room seems to be the aging James Conner, who somehow every year is a value and somehow always ends up as a borderline RB1, RB2. The backup is a mix of Keontae Ingram coming into his second year with Corey Clement and Tyson Williams. I had a little bit of hopes for Keontae Ingram. Didn't really see much last year. James Conner, I know he's getting up there in age, but he seems to be a touchdown machine and seems to produce every year. So I always roster him. I think last year, Scott Fishbowl was the one I noticed most obvious. I went zero RB in that league because it's super flex. I ended up getting him in the 5th round, and he was great for me all year. I think it was a high end RB2. I know the injuries, seem to mount up, but he always seems to be a value. What do you think on this group of 4 here?
Yeah, I was really surprised that they didn't add a running back through the draft. I thought for sure that they'd get a guy like Roshan Johnson or someone in those middle rounds to give James Conner, some competition or something. But looks like they're ready to roll with James Conner doing the workhorse thing again. Maybe Keontae Ingram gets some of that pass catching work. But like you said, James Conner is getting a little bit older, and he has that touchdown ability there and that opportunity. So he's a guy that he's gonna get the touches. The question is who behind him will usurp him for some of those touches, because he's not gonna be that guy forever.
I was gonna say, as you were talking, I was thinking maybe this would be a good spot to bring in one of the veterans that's unsigned, Hunt, Zeke, or Fournette. But then I considered if Murray's out, this team's gonna suck. They're not gonna contend. So why waste $10 million on an aging running back? Just let Connor have it. But maybe that could be a benefit. If Murray's out, and you say Hopkins is gone and the team's not very good, maybe they just let James Conner run the hell out of it. So once again, he could be a value. Um, Moving on to that interesting wide receiver room, it's very confusing. DeAndre Hopkins is still here. He's going to be traded, then he's not going to be traded, then he's going to be traded. I personally don't think he starts the season on this team, but if he does, he's the alpha. They have Hollywood Brown coming in next. Then a couple of little guys in Rondell Moore and Greg Dortch. Zach Pascal, nobody ever really pays attention to him. And they drafted Michael Wilson. I really liked him. I thought he had the size and speed to be something here. So I would like to stash him in a couple of leagues in the event that maybe DeAndre Hopkins finally does get traded, because if Hopkins is gone, Wilson is the only one who, is a prototypical alpha. The rest of them are small size speed guys, or small undersized speed guys. So Wilson could be worthwhile here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is the wide receiver one there. There are those rumors that maybe Tennessee or Baltimore trades for him on draft day, but that didn't happen. The Cardinals made their own trades to get 2024 picks. So it looks like D-Hop might still stick with the Cardinals to start the season. If he does, he's the wide receiver one there. Marquise Brown, the wide receiver two. Rondell Moore is going to be a slot guy. If he is not playing or is hurt or something, then it'll be Greg Dortch. Zach Pascal, like you said, is no one's really paying attention to him all that much. Michael Wilson, he's third round pick, 6'1", 216 pounds. He's got good size, and he's definitely, if D-Hop is gone, then it's Michael Wilson who's going to fill that outside receiver role as one of those bigger guys that Kyler Murray will have to target. Ultimately, I think this is a wide receiver room that looks like it's made up of guys that would be playing for contending teams. Yeah. But if it's like the Cardinals seem like they're rebuilding, so it's sort of a weird situation. Like you look at D-Hop, Marquise Brown, these two guys are like they would both be really good wide receivers on contending teams, but here they are on the Cardinals. So
there's a lot of that. Same with James Conner, Hopkins, Zach Ertz. All three of these guys should be traded for capital to contending teams. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, you'd think Arizona would be smart enough to do it, and then just even trade Kyler, draft Caleb Williams next year. But moving on to that tight end room, Zach Ertz was the starter last year. I know he is. I have it up on Sleeper here. He's rehabbing still from a knee injury. They say everything is going well, but they always say that in the offseason. And they are excited with the possibility of him being ready for week 1. I've been operating on, I think it says 80% likely to play week 1. I think that's some BS. I was operating under the assumption he's not going to be ready for the first few weeks. And maybe Trey McBride was going to get a shot here. I liked McBride. He was the tight end 1 last year in the rookie class that everyone's forgotten about. I'd really like to see him get his shot there. And like I said, these guys should be trading off Ertz, Hopkins, Connor, a whole bunch of the old guys here, and give the young guys a shot, see if they have anything. What do you think on Ertz and McBride here?
Yeah, I had a couple shares of Ertz in some redraft leagues last year. He was useful enough, but I think they drafted Trey McBride with high enough draft capital to be the next guy behind Ertz, kind of similar to Michael Wilson, maybe one of the next guys behind D-Hop or Marquise Brown. So it'll be interesting to see how that tight end group unfolds. I think McBride gets the edge for sure in Dynasty. In redraft, it probably gets a little murky in there when Zach Ertz fully comes back. But like you keep saying, like there's a lot of veterans in this room. So it's maybe the Cardinals are really confident that Kyler Murray, Zach Ertz, these guys rehab really quickly and they somehow contend for a wild card, but it doesn't seem like it at the moment. So Zach Ertz is definitely a candidate to maybe move on from the Cardinals if that's what happens. But Trey McBride's definitely the guy to eye for those beginning weeks in redraft.
Kyler Murray better be ready to go week 1, because if he's not ready to go and they knew it and they didn't trade Connor, Hopkins, and Ertz, that's borderline roster negligence by the general manager. Like if Murray's not going to be, from what I've heard, it sounds like he might miss half the season, and by the time he gets back, they might just be out of it and shut him down. In that case, like you got to get rid of those 3 older guys. Like Hopkins, Connor, and Ertz, what do they each have? Maybe 2 years at best for all of them. You got to get something out of them now. But like I said, I'd like to see McBride get a shot. I'd like to see Michael Wilson get a shot. I don't really care for any of the running backs. Maybe I'd like to see Keontae Ingram get a shot, but I just day 3 running back, not someone I'm all that high on. This team is really kind of they're either really, really old or really, really young, and there's no in between. My ideal here would be, like I said, Clayton Tune, Keontae Ingram, Michael Wilson, and Trey McBride all in the starting lineup, but you're more likely to see Murray, Connor, Hopkins, and Ertz. So I'm not sure what way this team is going, and I don't know if the GM knows which way they're going. Based on where you think they're all going to go in drafts, rough estimate, who's a player on the Cardinals you think you're going to be targeting on a lot of your teams?
I think Marquise Brown is going to be a guy that I target a lot of teams. He seems to be he's the kind of guy that he got a lot of usage early on last year, and that was when D-Hop was out, and then Marquise Brown got injured. But from what I'm seeing in some of these early on redraft draft boards, Marquise Brown is sort of, you can find him in like the 7th-ish, 6th-ish round.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that he can definitely get a lot of volume. Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown have history together as well. So he's definitely the guy that can get a lot of volume out of that wide receiver room, especially if they're looking to pass with Kyler Murray and they're looking to do some sort of contention. And like, I know you said you don't know like which way is this team going. They did add a couple of 2024 picks. They added that first round pick from the Texans last year that could be really valuable, but then again,
for the trade up, okay.
They also added Paris Johnson, which seems like a commitment to Kyler Murray and this core. So back to Marquise Brown though, he's definitely a guy that I'm looking at in drafts right now.
I think he's, as far as redraft goes, I think he's probably the only one I'm targeting. He seems to be a good value. None of them really excite me for redraft aside from him. If we're talking dynasty, there's a handful I'd like. Like I said, Tune, Ingram, McBride, and Wilson are all guys I'd like to probably stash on taxi squads to see how they develop. But if I'm in a dynasty league, I think it's not a bad time to buy Kyler. They're not just going to stop playing him. So either he's going to play for the Cardinals or he's going to end up getting traded. Either way, he's going to play somewhere. He's got a decent-sized contract, so I think he's a good buy low. Who is someone on here you think you're going to be avoiding this year?
It's a little bit of a tough question considering how all these veterans shake out. It seems like D-Hop is valued. It's
all over the place.
Yeah, where he should be. James Conner is probably where he should be. But I'm probably avoiding Rondale Moore. And the reason being is he's their slot guy. He's been sort of penciled in as their number 3 wide receiver the last couple of years, but he hasn't really produced to the point. He hasn't really produced to the point where we want to put him in lineups, and he's going relatively late in redraft, so he's not that pricey, but Greg Dortch was really productive in weeks that Rondale Moore was out, so I would not be surprised to see Greg Dortch overtake Moore in that slot receiver role. Moore is the kind of guy that I'm fading. I'm seeing guys like Rashad Bateman and Gabe Davis at his price point, and I'd prefer both of those guys over Moore. In Dynasty for sure. If not,
that's not even close. Yeah, unless he's in the last couple rounds of my draft. You're right. That's way overpriced. And to name, what'd you say, Gabe Davis and Rashad Bateman? That's thank you. Okay, last year they were 15th in the NFC. Where do you think they finish in the NFC West this year? 4th or 3rd? You think they can ahead of the Rams?
Yeah, I think they finish ahead of the Rams, but definitely behind the Seahawks and 49ers. Those two teams are way ahead of the other two in this division.
I think they're probably best off if they do finish 4th, because this looks like a roster that needs to rebuild. So the lower they finish, probably the better off for them long term. Last year, 4 wins. This year, over, under, or the same?
I'm going to go with the over on this one. So 5 or 6 wins is where I'm thinking with this. I think 4-13 was sort of bottoming out with Kyler Murray getting injured, D-Hop and Marquise Brown also having injuries. And they'll have injury concerns going in, but I'm taking the over here, especially if they're facing the Rams twice this season. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really see the Rams going anywhere this year either. So
yeah. All right. Thank you for joining me. You want to take another chance here to tell everyone where they can find all your work and what it is you do?
Yeah, again, I'm a writer for playerprofiler.com, so you can find my articles on there. And occasionally I appear on the Writers Roundtable as well for playerprofiler.com. That's on
Were you on it last night?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. I tuned in last night. And I thought I remember seeing you on there. I knew it was Seth, and I think it was you, Babbage, and the other guy whose name I forget, John
Lang. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, sorry. Continue. You got me sidetracked.
So the Writers Roundtables you can find on the Player Profiler YouTube network as well, and then of course my Twitter at ADI_FUL, always looking to spit out information on there. So give me a follow, and you can find some information there as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
This has been my thoughts on the Arizona Cardinals with Aditya Fuldeore. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist. This has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thanks, Aditya, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a good night.